Hello and welcome along to the Westminster Roundup with me, your host, Alex Sexton. I'm delighted again to be joined by the Alliance's Parliamentary and Policy Officer, Ryan McCulloch. Hi, Ryan.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good.
Another week, another one where it's been all eyes on Parliament. Obviously, the headline being the coronavirus, but if we can just hold off on that for a short while, because there is another topic I'd like to kick off with, and that is the budget. The new Chancellor revealed and made the statement on Wednesday, didn't he, Ryan?
He did, yeah. Rishi Sunak, the very new Chancellor, who's only been in the job 3 or 4 weeks, delivered his first budget statement on Wednesday. And it might be worth just at this point running through the three asks or the broad three topics that we addressed in our budget submission to the Chancellor before I go into the detail of what was in the actual budget. We wrote to the Chancellor and asked for an extension of, a maintenance of, but we'd hoped for an extension of the soft drinks industry levy, and that extension we'd hoped would go to milky-based drinks, the goal of that being to fund school sport. We had a range of asks around community amateur sports clubs, a lot of which are quite detailed and I won't go into here, but there were a number of asks in that particular section. And then we also wanted to ask for an extension of business rates relief, the relief that's basically available in the hospitality industry to pubs, etc., to be extended to grassroots sports clubs.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we actually have a little clip now of the Chancellor addressing that particular issue.
But there are tens of thousands of other businesses in the leisure and hospitality sectors currently not covered by this policy. Museums, art galleries and theatres, caravan parks and gyms, small hotels and B&Bs, sports clubs, nightclubs, clubhouses, guest houses. They would not benefit from today's measure, but they could be some of the hardest hit. So for this year, I have decided to extend the 100% retail discount to them as well. That means any eligible retail, leisure or hospitality business with a rateable value below £51,000 will, over the next financial year, pay no business rates whatsoever.
So Ryan, Rishi Sunak there details about how this emergency relief will be extended to sports clubs, but what does that mean for our members?
Well, I think it's good. First of all, it's temporary. Probably should caveat it with that, because it's part of a range of measures, 30 billion, I think, towards kind of coronavirus mitigation or economic mitigation of the impacts of the coronavirus. But basically what it means is he has extended the business rates relief from the hospitality and retail industries to grassroots sports club and a number of other cultural and leisure industries. So, arts, galleries, museums, and also leisure facilities like gyms. And what it means for the next year, at least, is that any kind of business with a rateable value of up to £51,000 will be exempted from business rates for 1 year.
And more promisingly, the Chancellor went on to mention the fact that this business rate relief for the long term will be under review, and we may well have some more information come the autumn.
Yeah, and that's an important point, first of all, because as with any budget, you've got to dig down into the detail, never take it at the face value initially. So we're doing this now a couple of days after the budget. There still needs to be some time to dig down into the detail. But yeah, I think I'm hopeful that now that he's chosen to extend that rate relief onto grassroots sports clubs, that will continue even when the kind of total abolishment of rates is dropped next year.
And that emergency rate relief is very good news for some grassroots clubs, but those on the smaller end of the scale perhaps not seeing the support and help they needed. But there was some additional news from the Chancellor around a potential grant for those clubs.
Yeah, so any business that's eligible for small business rates relief means that kind of any small business with a rateable value of up to 12,000, assuming that they are eligible for small business rates relief, is going to get a £3,000 grant for the government, again as part of this kind of coronavirus mitigation effort. But generally speaking, just on that in particular, it's a good win for the Alliance and a good win for the Alliance's members. We think it will really help a number of grassroots sports clubs, and we're really pleased to see that particular thing in the budget after campaigning for it.
And of course, it'd be really interesting to hear from our members about just how many of their clubs will be positively impacted by that. So we'll certainly be keeping an eye on that and perhaps asking our members some questions related to that. And I know that it's still early stages with budget documents being released, but as Ryan mentions, it will be a case of filtering through some of this documentation and actually pinning down how clubs can access this relief.
Yeah, kind of watch this space on that. As you've said there, Alex, quite rightly, we need, with any budget, the top level stuff's released that can go in the papers and the news and that me and you can talk about right now, but it's members and their clubs that will see it on the ground. So we will comb through it, and we will try and find out how it's going to play out in what we hope are the positive ways for grassroots sports clubs.
So we'll take that one as a bit of a win for the Alliance and our membership.
Yes.
How did the Chancellor deliver on our other kiosks?
Well, there was some other stuff in there, some positive stuff. So our members may remember that last year the school sport school sport action plan was published, and there was a commitment in the budget to bring that kind of update that and bring it forward later in the year, and that came alongside a pledge to fund school sport. So the Chancellor said there'll be 29 million per year by 2023-4, which is good. With a pinch of salt, again, as you would with any budget, I say that that's a goal to have by 23-24. When we dig down into the detail, we don't know at what rate that's going to rise between now and then. So it's not 29 million from tomorrow. It will go up incrementally, and we need to see the detail of that. But the pledge is that 29 million will be there by that time.
So still questions to be asked of government, and of course the Alliance will be doing that alongside other stakeholders in the sector, and making sure that once that information has been revealed, we of course will share that with you as well.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. If I can come on to a couple of other bits that are in the budget, just to pick them apart quickly before I know we go into the sort of hardline topic of the week on coronavirus. But we think there'll be a continuation of soft drinks industry levy until 24-25, but we will get some clarity on that. So just briefly on that. For grassroots clubs, the structures and buildings allowance has been extended from 2% to 3%. And a big thanks to my colleague Max, who, while the rest of us were celebrating the win in the first one, said, I think he's just said this as well. So Max's keen ear was good for that. And finally, there's been an announcement on the spending review, which we thought would be September. We expected it to be announced at the budget, which it was. But it is going to be concluded in July rather than what we thought, September. So it's going to be quite a quick one. And all submissions for the spending review need to be made by the 20th of May.
And with that condensed window for those submissions, we will, of course, be supporting our members to get that done in time. But even more crucially, we will be calling on all of our sport and recreation members to share their success stories on the social value of sport, so we can really bang that drum on behalf of the sector and show the importance of that, and to make sure we get that funding when the spending review is announced that is deserving of our sector.
Yep, you're right. And we rely on our members to help us with our spending review campaign, and members will remember our last one. We'll be campaigning again, but we can only do it we can only do it with the help of members and pushing the messaging out, getting it out to your local political contacts and everybody else. So look out for that, because it's obviously, like I say, a short spending review period. So we'll be forming a campaign soon, and we'll be getting a lot of information out to members soon.
As Ryan mentions, that will be on the way in the following weeks. So please do join us in promoting those messages and sharing those stories. Okay, Ryan, so to move on to the elephant in the room, I guess, we're recording this on Friday afternoon. We've already seen incredible movement in the sport and recreation world over the last 48 hours, including a statement from the Prime Minister yesterday discussing the next phase of tackling the coronavirus. If you can just provide our listeners with an update as to what the PM said and what the latest on the sector is.
Yeah, so the Prime Minister's statement yesterday was to let the country know essentially that we're moving from the first phase, which was the containment phase, is that right? Yeah. To the delay phase. It was quite a somber statement from Boris Johnson. For those of you who may have seen it, he said it is going to get worse, which I think is widely accepted that it is. Anyone with symptoms that are similar, so a high temperature or a cough, should self-isolate for 7 days, but the government, or I've said that the NHS will no longer be testing people unless they're in hospital. The advice will just be to self-isolate for 7 days.
Interestingly, Boris Johnson announced that the government wouldn't be scaling back large-scale events that are attended, and that's particularly an issue around sport and recreation with fixtures up and down the country. What we've seen today, though, is some of our governing bodies actually take the step themselves, and some organisations cancelling and postponing fixtures themselves to try and counter the spread of the coronavirus.
Yeah, and that's quite an important point, because I think part of the government strategy is to sort of say, we don't necessarily suggest you do this, but if common sense dictates that you should, then do so. Obviously, England's tour of Sri Lanka has been postponed. There's been midway through the Players' Championship golf tournament in America, it's been postponed. Formula One's been postponed. The English Football League has been suspended for a couple of weeks, and the Premier League too. And the Premier League's decision is an interesting one, because this is where the phase that we're at with the virus now is that the government have said, okay, you've no need to cancel, but events have caught up with the Premier League in the sense that there were 5 or 6 teams this morning self-isolating because the Arsenal manager has tested positive, and so it made holding fixtures pretty much unfeasible anyway. And so I think the government's advice is, at the moment, we're not advising you do this, but let's take, as a nation, let's take the common sense view on what's right and what's wrong, and lots of sports organisations have decided the sensible approach will be to postpone or cancel events.
What we would flag, though, is that there are still competitions and events being run by some of our members. Leagues do continue. They are following government advice. What we can say as the Alliance is that for any of these events that do continue, absolutely follow government advice. We would always encourage you to check in with insurers before you cancel any events to see where you stand with that, and also take the proper precautions when you are hosting these events, whether that is making sure that these events are pointing out correct hygiene routines, extra sanitizers are available, and also take into account the possibility of any vulnerable people that may be attending these events. Yeah,
and that was the point I was going to make. The government are saying essentially protect those that are vulnerable, okay? So as you said, Alex, that means taking all necessary precautions at events, but it also means if your events are predominantly for older people, then maybe take a common sense approach about whether gathering a group of people who are in a risk group is a sensible idea. Insurance point is a really good point, and I would encourage members to talk to their insurers now before it gets to a situation where they are having to make or possibly make any claims for cancellations of events. So I would take a decision at the moment based on, if you're thinking of taking a decision, talk to your insurer first and know what potentially financial impact there could be and what other impacts there could be, and what ways your insurer can help, and what your insurance policy covers essentially. But you are right that we are talking about this because we have to make sure that everybody errs on the side of caution and does the right thing. But there are a number of events going ahead. Badminton have got an event going ahead at the moment. We've obviously got Cheltenham this week, which I know you're really looking forward to the Gold Cup this afternoon, Alex. But obviously a number aren't. And I think the key thing to remember is that in all of this is to follow the advice closely, but try as best you can not to panic in this situation.
And that message extends to participation, and we would absolutely echo what Sport England have been telling us this week, which is, in fact, the best way to combat the virus is to be as fit and healthy as possible. And what we don't want to see is activity being cancelled from grassroots up to elite. We actually really, where sensible, want to see programmes continue to run to make sure that the nation is fit, healthy and active to fight off this virus.
Yeah, and you'll know, Alex, that Sport England have issued some guidance on that today, because it's quite crucial that people do, where possible, continue. Those who are self-isolating, obviously, if you can work out indoors. But if you're not self-isolating, then it is good for you to continue to keep physically fit and healthy, as you say. And medical professionals, Deputy Chief Medical Officer has said, it's as good a way of helping your body to fight coronavirus as any is trying to keep fit and active. We've just had the Alliance Run Club this lunchtime. Nobody's stopping while we're here. We're going to be out doing what we can to be physically active. So where possible, continue with events and activities.
And in the meantime, if you do want any additional guidance on the latest updates, how to keep active and keep these sessions running, please do follow Sport England. Check out their advice, check out Public Health England's advice and the government's advice where possible. Although we have had a query come in from one of our members this week, Ryan, and we are also happy to act as a sounding board and to offer any information we can do. So I know you spoke with one of our members earlier this week, Ryan.
Yep, I did indeed, and I'm hoping that they found that very helpful. But it's a rapidly changing situation, so I'm happy to field any and all queries, and as often as needs be as the situation changes. But as you rightly say, there is guidance out there from government on the virus itself. There is guidance there from Sport England and other bodies on what to do with, if you're organising events. But if you do have anything, or you don't know how to access the information or where to get it from, then really get in touch with myself or anyone else in the policy team, and we'll be happy to talk you through it, because as Alex said, it's a worrying time, and if we can be a sounding board for it, then we'll do our best.
And you can get in contact with Ryan and the whole policy team by emailing them policy@sportandrecreation.org.uk. And we'd also suggest that you follow us online at SportRecTweets, where we'll be providing the links to all of the latest updates and information. So please do check that out. And also in the show notes that will sit below this episode, we'll put in all of the useful additional reading and information so that you are as updated as possible when it comes to deciding on your next steps. Well, unfortunate to end on a somber note, but hopefully a useful one for our members, Ryan. Thank you so much for joining us again this week.
You're welcome.
And we'll be back again in a couple of weeks, where hopefully we can dig a little deeper into what's happened in the budget, provide an update on the developing situation of the coronavirus, and hopefully take a slightly broader view on the launch of our spending review.
Yep, we'll definitely, that's our focus for the next couple of weeks. As I say, a quick turnaround on that. So that will be a big focus for us, obviously keeping an eye on coronavirus, but hopefully we can provide some happier news next week. Who knows?
Excellent. Well, that's it for the latest Westminster Roundup.